And we are live. What's good, Charles? Your man, Bill Saint. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I really want to know podcast, man. How y'all doing? How are you guys doing, man? Happy Tuesday. Hope everything is going well on your end. Uh, things are going pretty good on my end. Just did a quick sound check. Everything's cool. Um, hope life is treating you right. You know, life is treating me the way it always treats me. Like I said, it's like it's out to get me, and it's a battle, y'all. It's a battle. Um, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, but you just keep swinging. Um, yeah, man, it's Tuesday. Yesterday we had a pretty good talk. The show about aliens, man. Are there UFOs and aliens and all that? It was pretty good talk, man. Glad y'all were able to hang out with me and we had that conversation. It's pretty cool. For those who come in here, please, when you come in, please hit that like button if you don't mind on your way in. Subscribe if you haven't done so already. Um, because I'm supposed to say that. I'm working on it. I got myself notes, little bullet points. Don't forget to say this. Don't forget to say that. It is what it is. Brother Smeebles is in the building. What's good, bro? Good day. What's good? Checking in from down under, man. Good to see you, brother. How you feeling, man? Hope all is well over there. Um, it's crazy over here in the US of A, man. It's crazy over here, but hope all is well over there. I know y'all got all kind of freedom issues, free speech, freedom of assembly, freedom of expression over there, man. I hope y'all can change that. I hope y'all can change the way they do politics over there, man. And I hope, I know you've been working hard on your business, man. I hope you're able to sort all that out, bro. I still look forward to meeting you, man. I hope you can make it over here to the States. I'm working out some stuff too. I got some issues with my passport I need to work out, but as soon as I get all that under control, I can definitely see a trip to Australia, man. I want to hit Australia. I want to hit New Zealand. Probably jump over to the Golden Triangle while I'm over there. You know what I mean? Spend a little time and really check out that part of the world, man. But good to see you, bro. Um, so yeah, I'm just looking at everything. Everything's cool. So today's topic, man, before I want to jump into that, I'm a retired air traffic controller. A lot of people out there know it. If you follow this platform, you know that's retired air traffic controller. I began my career technically in air traffic control when I joined the United States Army. I was a combat air traffic controller, um, which basically means because I was a paratrooper. I went to Fort Bragg. I was part of our TAC teams, our tactical teams. Where basically, man, I was a really highly trained truck driver, right? Because in the Army, in the tactical Army, ATC stands for Army Trucking Company. But luckily on my teams, we would actually go out and do some of our missions. Nothing like what the air traffic controllers do here in America. Or the air traffic controllers for that matter in the Army who were at the fixed facilities. So that's where I started, 1990. And then I got out and it took a few years, but I was able to get hired by the Federal Aviation Administration here in America to become an air traffic controller. And I did that for over 20 years. With all of time included, it was like well over 25 years. So I've had people ask me some questions about air traffic control. I brought it up yesterday. We were talking about UFOs. People like, have you ever seen a UFO as an air traffic controller? And I always answer, yeah. I've seen all sorts of unidentified flying objects in the aviation world because they're out there. And I would explain what those things would turn out to be. And I will tell you this, it never turned out to be a spaceship from another species, right? An alien race. Haven't seen that. Never seen that. So that we were talking about that yesterday. And I had some people hit me up and they wanted to know a little bit more about air traffic control. Some people were asking me, who's in charge of the airplane? Who's in charge of the airplanes? Who's responsible for the airplanes? The air traffic controller or the pilot? The answer is it's the pilot. The pilot in command is responsible for the aircraft and everything on it. It is the pilot. Even if an air traffic controller gives the pilot some instructions, the pilot can do what they want to do. Air traffic controllers are there to assist, really. And it's like an extension of his eyes and is able to help, keep the system moving, the safe, orderly, expeditious flow of air traffic. That is that's what air traffic controllers strive to do. And the air traffic controller's primary mission is to prevent collisions in the system, prevent collisions. So air traffic controllers there to make sure no one flies into each other, no one flies into things. That's why the air traffic controllers are there. But you can tell a pilot to do something and they don't have to do it because the pilot is in command. Brother Mandrell's in the building. What's good, fam? How you feeling, man? Good to see you, bro. Yeah, I see what you got in store for the show tomorrow, man, on Black Man Unfiltered Network, bro. I'm gonna have to try to tune in on that one. Yeah, Derek Jackson. Hey man, money grab's a money grab. I ain't mad. You know what I mean? I ain't mad at dude at all for what he was doing. I'm a little disappointed in people that think that that's a thing. You know what I mean? So yeah, you guys make sure you check out Brother Mandrell's show on Black Man Unfiltered Networks, Unapologetic with Mandrell and Shushu. It's Mandrell and his beautiful sister, and they have these great conversations about social things and all sorts of stuff. But lately, I've been talking a lot about relationships and social stuff. So, matter of fact, let me pull up the give me a second here. Let me see if I can pull it up because I saw the thumbnail and I thought it was really interesting. That thumbnail. I thought it was really interesting. So I want to pull that up and just read it real quick. Here it is right here. So it is a news flash. You're not as ethical as you think. No one is. And the thumbnail has, let me pull the thumbnail up just so y'all can see it. You know what I mean? I'm definitely going to try to check this one out, man. This will be Wednesday. This will be tomorrow. Let me see if I can share this screen real quick. I want you guys to see it. And this is going to be on Brother Mandrell's show on Black Man Unfiltered Network. There it is right there. Definitely want to check that out. Right? Unapologetic with Mandrell and Shushu. So there it is. Newsflash, you're not as ethical as you think. No one is. And they got Derek Jackson there. And this is going to be August 23rd at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 9:30 p.m. Eastern. I think he's in Central. So that'll be 8:30 Central Standard Time. Let me go ahead and give that a like right now. Definitely want to hear that conversation, bro. So shout out to you, man. Let me give you another horn blast for that. Shout out to you, man. Yeah, I want to see that. I've seen a lot of stuff on Derek Jackson lately. People are getting mad at him because, you know, like he's preaching one thing and doing something completely different. Yeah, that's how it works, man. That is how it works, man. Like, you know what I mean? It is what it is. How it works. I I am messing up on my end, guys. I'm trying to figure out. Oh, here I am. Somehow I managed to get my audio screwed up here. I got my signals crossed here for a second. All right, cool. All right, cool. So, all right, I'm back. I'm back. My bad. My bad. Moving like an old man. So, I'm going to talk about air traffic control, bro. Like, who's in charge? Like I said, the pilot in command. The pilot is in charge of that airplane. I don't care if you're flying around on an Airbus, a 747, a 737, or somebody's Bonanza or Cessna, whatever. The pilot is in charge. The pilot in command, the PIC, is responsible for everything and everyone on board that aircraft, right? So we're going to watch a video. And this should be a really quick this should be a real quick live today, guys, because unless you guys have a lot of questions, there's not a whole lot to cover here. But we're gonna watch a video of Braniff Flights. I think it was 352. This is a very old video, guys, that we're about to watch. This voice recording happened. Well, this incident occurred, I want to say back in the 60s. In fact, we're going to be listening to the voice recording from the cockpit, and there was the captain, there was a co-captain, and there was the engineer was on board. There may have been a navigator. There might have been 4 men up front. So that tells me right there what era we were living in when they had an engineer. And, you know, a lot of people are like, well, why would you need an engineer on an airplane? Well, back then, the computer systems weren't what they are today. Right now, the systems are regulated by computers. If you're flying around on an Airbus, the the computer does a lot of the flying, a lot of it. It does a lot of flying. I'm not going to get too crazy into the engineering of that particular aircraft, but they have like a little joystick kind of thing that flies the airplane, right? As opposed to the yoke that most people are accustomed to. When you have the yoke, it's just the way it's set up. Is it you would take strength to pull the airplane out of a dive and all that kind of stuff. With this joystick thing, I'm not sure how that works, and it's a lot of technology that allows the pilot to in the in the airplane to interface. So back then they didn't have that computer interface, so we had to have humans to monitor systems. All lights and bells and whistles. It was like it was a section, an area where the engineer would sit, and it's the engineer's job to monitor everything: the electrical system, weight and balance, the fuel, all kind of hydraulic stuff, engines, the how the engines are running, like RPM. The engineer was looking at all that stuff and making inputs and doing what he had to do to make the aircraft perform the way it was supposed to perform. Um, that's how it works. So that was someone's job. You had the pilot in command, of course. You had the co-pilot, of course, and sometimes you had a navigator, depending on what type of aircraft or what type of where they were flying. Um, they didn't have satellite-based guidance like GPS like we do today. So pilots actually had to navigate. They had to know what they were doing, and these pilots were good. Most of these guys flew in World War II, like or Korea. Like these guys had a lot of experience. A lot of these guys were fighter pilots. Some of them were bombardier pilots, but they knew how to fly. They were aviators, top-notch aviators, and they're used to being in command. So that's how I worked back in the day. So I found this recording, and we kind of it's like 8 minutes, right at 8 minutes, and it tells the story of a horrific event that occurred in Texas, and we can actually hear the controllers and the pilot talking, and you can also hear the crew talking amongst each other. And I thought it'd be kind of good to go over this, because this answers some of the questions that I've been getting from folks about the air traffic world and the aviation world and how it works. Right. So let's go ahead and get right into it, man. Shall we? Let's go. The following is a cockpit reported tape of Braniff Flight 352. I'm sorry, and it said on May 3rd, 1968, Braniff Flight 352 left Houston's Hobby Airport at 4:11 p.m. The flight would end tragically 36 minutes later when pilots flew the plane, a four-engine L. My bad, I'm moving slow. Let me go back because I keep forgetting that some people aren't watching this; they're listening to this. So I should actually read what's going on. So, and y'all know Uncle Saint be reading real slow. So on May 3rd, 1968, Braniff Flight 352 left Houston Hobbies Airport at 4:11 p.m. local time. The flight would end tragically 36 minutes later when the pilots flew the plane, a four-engine L-188A electric turboprop airliner, into a thunderstorm against the advice of air traffic control. Now, this is, Electras were pretty big manufacturer of aircraft back in the day. You got to understand that back in aviation, way back then, there were tons and tons of manufacturers out there. There were all sorts of airplanes out there, from big to small, all sorts. Electra is one of them. We know about Boeing. We know about Airbus. But, you had Cessna. You had Bombardier who's out there now. You have, when you look at jets, like corporate jets, there's a lot of different manufacturers out there. Citation is really big. Learjet is really big. You have all these different, Aerostar, like Aero Specialties, like the companies they'll get bought up by other companies and like the names would change, but there were a lot of people making airplanes back then, more than now. And there's still quite a few companies out there making airplanes now, designing aircraft. Raytheon makes them. There's a bunch of airplanes out there. Beechcraft, a lot. But it was even more back then. So this was a turboprop. So this thing had propellers, right? A turboprop is a jet engine with a propeller on front. Right? That's why they call them turboprops. So it is, it is what it is. Let's see, Miss AK, ladies in the building. What's good, sis? How you feeling? You know, we got Brother Jack Black in the building. One of my nights. What's good, fam? What's good? He's gonna be an air traffic controller soon. He's studying hard. He's gonna be in this world. And this actually give him a taste of what what his future holds for him. So that's what's going on here. We're gonna hear what was going on with the crew on board the aircraft, and we're gonna hear the conversations between the pilot or the crew and air traffic control. So let's get back into it.
Houston Center, Braniff 352. A few miles up the road, would like to deviate to the west. Looks like there's something in front of us.
Okay, so what's going on now is the first couple comments you heard was the crew. The crew was on there and they were talking. Hey, the engineer was like, hey, you know, the pilots, the co-pilot engineer are all looking out the window and they can see this nasty storm out front. Like, they see like, hey man, it looks pretty bad out there. Look at that, look at those clouds. And they're all discussing like, we should deviate. So what does deviate mean? Deviate means go around. So deviate is the term air traffic controllers use when a pilot wants to go off their course. Pilots plot a course, and then air traffic controller has certain, guidelines within that plot. Like, are we going to keep you in a certain area? This is the profile you got to fly, and this is how it works, right? So when you want to come off of that, you got to ask for a deviation. Hey, our course is taking us into this nasty sail. You're going to hear that term a lot, sail, or you get nasty weather ahead. They don't want to go into those clouds. So they're going to want to deviate. Airplanes have radar on board. They have radar, weather radar in the plane. Even back then, the radar wasn't as good as it is today. And air traffic tends to have better radar than the pilots. So the pilots would generally defer to the air traffic controller. So those first few words you heard, that was inside the airplane. So if it's in red, if you guys are watching this, if it's in red, the text, that's the crew talking to one another. And if it's in yellow and white, that's the crew talking to the air traffic controllers. So Houston Center is the air traffic control entity that's responsible for the airspace that they're flying through right now. They just asked the air traffic controllers if we can deviate. They want to turn away from the storm that they see. And when you ask their traffic controllers, well, the controllers have the big picture. They know where all the other airplanes are. So they have to give you permission to do it. And the thing real quick with deviations, if you just approve a pilot's request, I want to deviate to the left, he can go as far left as he wants. So a lot of times you have to tell the pilot, okay, you can deviate to the left, but only so far. You can deviate to the left, approve no more than 30 degrees left or something like that, or you give them a heading. Left deviations approved. You can deviate as far left as, and they'll give you a heading 090 or 310 or whatever. So the pilot, like, okay, I can go left up to this point, which might be 10 degrees, 30 degrees, 40 degrees, something like that. Rarely would it be up to 90 degrees, but they're gonna, normally they're gonna limit you because they don't want you to go too far because there's other airplanes out there, right? Or other bad stuff out there. So here we go. Let's continue.
Roger, one moment.
They were back
And that garbled conversation sounds like the flight attendants were up front talking about stuff. So I believe this airplane was preparing to land. This aircraft was trying to descend so they can land at the airport. On here it says garbled because you can't really make out what they're saying. But I think someone was talking to a flight attendant. And then she probably left and went back to the rear. And right there, the captain is telling the first officer, hey, ask the air traffic controllers if we can get 15,000. We want to descend. So they're above 15,000 feet. They want to come down. Hey, ask air traffic if we can get down to 15,000. Because maybe they're looking at this, like maybe we can get below this nasty weather. And they're asking for a heading of 352. So they want a 352 heading, which is a real precise heading. They want to fly heading 352, and they want to descend down to 15,000 feet. So let's see what happens.
And 352 would like to descend to 15,000 if we get it.
And correction, they didn't want 352 heading. That's their call sign is 352. And one of the things in air traffic control, and I'm gonna be stopping this a lot, y'all, because air traffic can get really confusing. In air traffic control, the FAA and controllers are real sticklers about call signs. You have to use your full call sign. So he said 352. I'm kind of reading, I'm listening to it. I'm like, he's asking for a 352 heading. That doesn't sound right. He wasn't asking for the heading. That's his call sign. He's Braniff 352, but he just said 352. And that goes on to this day. That happens a lot in air traffic control today. Southwest will be out there like, yeah, Southwest 316. They'll just say 316. Well, there are more 316s out here. I might have a United 316. I might have a Speedbird, which is British Airways 316 heavy. And I got you, Southwest 316. I need you to use your full call sign. So like, yeah, 316 is asking for lower. Which 316? Oh, sorry about that. Southwest 316. All right, Southwest 316, stand by. Or Southwest 316, descend to maintain 15,000. Yeah, and it's just, and then, you know, Speedbird come up. Speedbird 316 heavy, descending to 15,000. Speedbird 316 heavy, negative. That was for another aircraft. That's where air traffic controllers make their money. It's trying to keep all these numbers straight. Normally, you don't have to deal with similar sounding call signs. And when you do, there's like all this stuff you have to say. You have to tell everybody we got similar sounding call signs out here. Right. So you tell them, hey, attention all aircraft, similar sounding call signs. We have Speedbird 315 heavy, Southwest 315, and United 315. And all the pilots, they'll say Roger. So now they're really paying attention, and you're really paying attention to altitudes and headings. You're listening, and they don't come back like 315, like use your full call sign. Sorry about that. Speedbird 315 heavy, Roger. So that's why. That little bit right there shows you how quick you can get confused with a heading or a call sign. So yeah, we're going to keep this going, Brother Jack. I think Unk's starting to miss ATC. No, sir, I'm not missing it at all. Just a lot of people have been asking me about this. No, I do not miss ATC at all. I loved my career. I really did. But air traffic was not who I was. It was what I did. And they were willing to pay me to not come to work. And I had to take them up on that offer. Dr. B's in the building. What's good, Dr. B _84. Man, I saw you on Donovan Sharp's Mind platform, bro. What's good, man? Look forward to seeing you in October. But let's continue.
352, contact forward center 133.3 to have your request for deviation. Okay, thank you. Fort Worth Center, Braniff 352 requesting 15,000 and requesting deviation to the west. Braniff 352 Fort Worth, yes, deviation east, of course. All the aircraft are deviating that way at the present time. Over.
So right there, what just happened? Air traffic control is broken down into sectors. So you might have 5 air traffic controllers who are sitting next to each other, all working different sectors or different areas. It's broken down by sectors, and each sector, each controller has their control sectors, and they have frequencies. So the Braniff Flight is at the boundary of one of these sectors. He's about to go from one sector into the next sector, and he wants to deviate to the west, and he wants to descend. Well, the controller that he's talking to can't grant that. So right away, the controller's like, okay, we have your request, stand by. And then they wait a little bit. So what is that controller doing? That controller is sending the information to the next controller. He might be sitting right next to him. He might be saying, hey, man, you just took a handoff. And a handoff is a computerized acceptance of information, right? And I'm not going to get on. Maybe later we'll get into all that about air traffic control stuff. But basically, it's automated stuff. Even back then, it was automated. The receiving controller would have to take this information. Either it was automated information or it could have been on a piece of paper, like what's called a flight progress strip. I slide it over to you, you take it, and you know it's like, all right, I'm in command of this aircraft now. And the controller whose airspace they're leaving say, hey, center has your request, contact center on whatever frequency, 133.5 or whatever the frequency was. And Braniff was like, okay, they changed the radio dial, 133.5, they check in. And your first call, you got to use your full call sign. This is Braniff Flight, you know, whatever it is, this is Braniff Flight 352. So they'll call like, you know, Houston Center, Braniff Flight 352 with you, level at whatever altitude. He didn't check in with an altitude, but the controller knew what altitude he was at. So again, that back then, this was the Wild West days of air traffic control. This was long before me. So nowadays they have to check in. And this is Braniff Flight 352 with you, level 18, requesting 15,000 and deviation to the west. That'd have been the first call sign in Houston Center, like Braniff 352, Houston Center. Roger, or they will say stand by, and Roger just means I heard you. So, and then they're going to sit there. So that controller came back and was like, all right, you want to deviate to the west. Everyone else has been going to the east. So a controller has to give the pilot the big picture. Hey man, everyone else has been going east. It's working pretty good. And this pilot's like, I want to go west. He's like, so right away, the controller's like, everyone's been going east. And, you know, and they have a request for a lower altitude. So let's see what happens.
352, does it look better on our scope here? It looks like just a little bit to the west to do us real fine. 352, deviation west of course is approved. Now stand by on the altitude change and squawk ident, over.
So right away, the controller's trying to get them to do something different. Hey man, you want to go west? Everyone else is going east. It's working pretty good. The pilot's like, well, our radar looks like it's pretty good. To the west is going to do us just fine. We want to go that way. So air traffic is like, okay, deviation to the west is approved. And working on your altitude and squawk ident, that's some other ATC stuff that isn't really, it is impertinent right now. But which is just a way for him to identify him using the equipment they have. You know, Braniff 352 ident. And it something happens on a radar scope, you're like, okay, that's him. You know it's him. You're pretty sure it's him. But once you tell him to ident, it's like, all right, that's him for sure. And he said squawk ident was something else. But anyway, it's not important. So the air traffic controllers are told the pilot, everyone's been going east. This pilot's like, nah, we want to go west. And the air traffic controller's like, okay, right? It's your airplane, Captain. You're responsible. Deviation to the west is approved. So let's keep going. And then right there, that's on board. Remember, in red, if you're watching this, in red is the crew talking to one another. Someone in the front of the airplane said, hey, man, it looks like there's a hole in the, like, it looks good over there. It looks like there's a hole. So you have your radar that's showing you what it's showing you. And then you're using your eyes. And they're looking out there and like, hey, it looks like it's a break out. There's a hole in there. You know, maybe we can go over here. That looks pretty good. So this is what they're looking at in the airplane. The air traffic controllers are looking at their radar scopes and they're talking to other air traffic controllers and all the other pilots. And they know that going to the east is working real good right now. So everyone should be ducks in a row. We're all going east. But this one, it's always one. Nah, we want to go this way. We want to go to the west. All right. So you heard them inside the airplane talking about this looks pretty good. We think we see a hole. In a hole, as we see a break in these clouds. It might be a little spot in there if we can just get down to 15,000. So let's go.
Braniff 352, radar contract, level lower altitude shortly. Okay,
good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Captain Phillips. We're cruising at 20.
So now the captain is talking to everybody in the back of the airplane. We're gonna let this, we'll let you know about this. Hear this in a second. But the controller came back and said, Braniff Flight 352 radar contact will have lower for you shortly. So that squawk ident thing, ident. We say ident, they say squawk ident. They saw the thing, they saw some automation changes to the radar display. That's the airplane. Radar contact. That means I got you. Now I'm looking at you. I know I got you. My radar is working good. I see you. We're good to go. Radar contact. And now he's like, well, I want to go. And he also said, I'll have lower for you here in a moment. Why? There's airplanes below him, next to him and above him. He's got to clear it out so he can descend down to the altitude that he's requesting. But he's already let him go to the west. I'm going to let you go to the west, but I can't descend you until I get some people out your way. So that's where it is. Yeah, Brother Jack is working on that, Miss AKA lady. And what does the control tower say law? Is what the control tower say law? If they disobey a tower command, is that the same as breaking the law? No, because the pilot's in command. There are certain things. No, There's nothing that the air traffic controller can say there's absolute law. There's things when controllers tell you to do stuff, you got to do it. There's some terms out there. If a controller tells you to stop, you're out there taxiing, you're driving your airplane and that's called taxiing. If a controller tells you to stop, you got to stop. In order to take off, you need a permission from an air traffic controller. He has to say cleared for takeoff. He has to give you permission to take that runway and do it. If the controller doesn't say clear for takeoff, you can't just take off. You'll be in trouble for that. But when you're out there flying, you're talking about landing and stuff like that, you need a controller to say, hey, clear to land. But if a pilot is in distress and there's something wrong with his airplane, you tell a pilot, clear to land on runway 8, but you land on runway 12 because you lost your engine or whatever, your airplane is doing something, you just landed. Once they do the investigation, they find out there's something wrong, there was an emergency, you're not going to be in trouble, really. You're not going to be in trouble. Like, they understand that. But if you just decide to do something, if the controllers tell you not to land, there's a word we use, there's a term we use that tells an airplane not to land and keep flying around. If we use that term and you land anyway and there's nothing wrong, there was no emergency, there's nothing going on, yeah, you'll be in trouble for that. You'll be in a lot of trouble for that. And it is so much safety built into the air traffic control system, the way, like the room that we must have between airplanes on the ground and in the air on the runway, that is really built in. Like if I got to have 3,000 feet or 6,000 feet or whatever I need for these two airplanes, and I have less than that, then it's a problem for the controller, a serious problem. But the pilot doesn't have to do what we tell them to do if they don't want to. If they feel it's unsafe, if they feel they can't comply, they don't have to do it. So no, it's not necessarily law. But the way the system works and the way pilots are trained, pilots rarely disobey air traffic controllers blatantly. They rarely do it. Sometimes they do, but that rarely happens. And Jack Black, like, got me on the way there. Got some tests to take, plus some medical and some security, other stuff as well. That's right. Yeah, he's on his way. He's on his way. You know what I mean? We're so proud of you, man. We got a couple nights trying to get there. So the captain is talking to the people in the back of the plane. They're cruising at 20,000 feet. He's saying that their ground speed and their altitude is 350 miles per hour. He's just doing that normal spiel. We're going to be on time. So they're at 20,000 feet. So they're at flight level 200 and they want to come down to 15,000 feet, right? 15,000. So we'll see what happens. Let's go.
20,000 feet. Our ground speed at altitude is 350 miles an hour. The weather at Dallas on the last sequence they were giving is 3,000 scouted, 10,000 scattered, high broken. Visibility is 6 miles with haze and smoke. The temperature is 82 degrees. Wind is out of the southeast at 8. At this present speed, we expect to arrive Dallas schedule. Schedule been 4:58. Directly ahead, we have a little line of thunder showers. We're going to deviate a little bit to the west. This might require 2 or 3 more minutes, but I think it'll be much more smooth and comfortable. It's been a pleasure having you all on board today. I hope you have a very pleasant day in Dallas, the ones who are planning in Dallas. Since February the 1st, Braniff International has been the #1 airline on time. We hope to maintain that record. In April, we had almost 96% on time, which is leading the industry still. Anytime you have any comments or suggestions that might, in your opinion, make this better airline, let us know. Thank you very much for your patronage. Those of you who are continuing past Dallas will be departing Dallas for Tulsa.
Braniff 352, maintain 14,000 over.
So it's funny how that spiel hasn't changed since the 60s, huh? They still do that same old spiel. And then you can hear people talking in the background. It's probably, again, the flight attendant was up front, probably doing some final checks and conferring with the, first officer or maybe the engineer. And then you heard the air traffic controllers talking to someone else, telling them to descend and maintain and all that. So there's a lot of noise going on in the front of the airplane when they're taking off, and then when they're like climbing up to altitude, and then when they're descending to land. When they get to their altitude they want to cruise at, it's not a lot going on. The air traffic control chatter is down to a minimum. It's not much to talk about. It's not much to do. But when you start to transition, either descending or climbing, it's a lot of chatter. It's a lot going on. The separation requirements start to get smaller and smaller. And, it's a lot going on. Then you add to that weather like we have here, you're about to see it's about to be a lot that's going on and on this particular flight. So let's check it out.
352, we're out at flight level 200 for 14,000.
14,000.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 924 for West. You're cleared down. Turn right heading 230 to receiving Temple, and you're cleared direct Temple, direct Austin, flight plan rate over.
So that part right there, you can hear the air traffic controllers in the back. You're clear direct here, direct there, direct, and then resume flight plan route or whatever. That's the stuff I'm talking about. These pilots are normally pinned down to routes. They got to fly. It still happens that way to this day. Back then they used more routes. Now we have procedures put in, there are different radios and they're like GPS stuff. And it's all kind of stuff that they can, we can move them around on, or we can just give them a heading. So, and a heading is a compass heading, like flight is heading, turn left heading, turn right heading. So this is like normal air traffic control stuff. They were able to get lower. They wanted 15,000. They got 14,000 and they're ready to come down. You heard the engineer ensure that he said it out loud. That still goes on in the front. Normally it's just the captain and the co-pilot. And air traffic control gives an altitude, American 15 heavy, turn left heading 300, climb and maintain flight level 330. And then the pilot will dial in the heading 330 and the co-pilot will point to it and say, okay, that's correct. And then they'll put in the altitude, flight level 330, and the co-pilot will point to it and say correct. Either pilot, whoever's not flying a plane will check and say it out loud for the voice recorder. They'll say it like, yep, that looks good. And then they'll talk to air traffic controller. They'll read back the heading and the altitude. And then air traffic control is like, cool. They like what they hear. They don't say nothing else. So that's where air traffic control is in a nutshell. And it's a lot of it going on. It's just constant, remembering what heading, making sure pilots go the correct direction, make sure they stop at the correct altitudes, make sure they're aware of what's going on around them. That's where air traffic control is. And the captain now is talking to someone. He's like, well, we'll be able to go under and to the west of all the thunder showers. Oh, he's still talking to the passengers.
So we'll be able to go well under and to the west of all the thunder showers, but they will be visible to you to the right. And then since they have just moved from the west, it might still be just a little choppy there. So if you'll sit down and remain seated until we turn off the seatbelt sign together. Appreciate it. Thank you.
And it's always good to keep your seatbelt on, people. Even if it's not choppy, even if it's not a cloud in the sky, keep your seatbelt on when you're flying, because there's a thing called clear air turbulence that can put you out your seat and at the top of that airplane on the ceiling of the airplane in a second. So just always keep your seatbelt on. It doesn't have to be like super tight, but make sure it's on. So if something like that happens, an airplane can drop 10,000 feet for no reason. Just atmospheric conditions could just make it happen. And, if you don't have your seatbelt on, you might hurt yourself. We got Brother Scam Likely in the building. What's good, fam? I see you. So that can happen. So always keep your seatbelt on. So now we know the captain's plan. The captain and his crew, co-captain and engineer, thinks that they can get under this storm and it'll be better for them to go to the west and get below this storm so they can land. So now we know why they wanted to deviate to the west, and now we know why they wanted lower altitudes, right? So he told his plan to all the passengers in the back, and this is what's going on. So let's continue.
Roger, Braniff 352, you got company traffic at 10 o'clock, 8 miles, northeast bound at 13,000.
So air traffic control is telling him company traffic means it's another airplane from your company, Braniff, at 10 o'clock, 8 miles northeast bound, 13,000, right? He's at 13,000 feet. And remember, Braniff is descending. So the air traffic controller needs him to see, or Braniff wants to descend. So he needs this pilot to see that airplane so he can get him down lower.
Waco altimeter is 2976, and he's deviating east to course.
352, Roger. We don't have him in sight yet. He's deviating east of course.
And right there, the controllers again. This is a trick that senior controllers would use. I'm calling out traffic. I'm letting you know what's going on out there, and I'm telling you what he's doing. I'm hinting again. That guy's going east of course. Right? You want to go west of course. That we done told you going east of course seems to be working. You're the only one going west. But it's a delicate dance. Right? The controllers are just letting them know, like, hey man, that guy's going east. So let's continue.
Oh, there he is. That's a block. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're ready to start today.
Now, Fort Worth, Braniff 52, requesting low altitude, please.
Braniff 352, I'm unable right now. Your company traffic's right under you. As soon as you're clear of him, I'll have something more. What's your heading now?
352, we're turning over to heading 340 degrees now.
So they gave him a deviation, but they don't know what heading he's flying. So he's up here flying 340. So he's, northerly. Right. And he's got company. He wants to go to the west. Let me check it over here. He wants to go to the west. His company is under him going to the east at 13,000. This guy wants to get down, below 13. So this guy underneath him has to get out the way. So they gotta hold that altitude till that guy's out the way. And the controller's working hard trying to grant his request, but at the same time, the controller's like, I can't believe this guy wants to go west. You're like, this is a problem. And Braniff's gonna keep saying, we want to go lower, we want to go lower. All right, we see the traffic, but I got to get him out of your way first. So that's what's going on.
Braniff 352, Roger. Braniff 352, descend and maintain 5,000, over.
352, descending to 5,000.
And so what happened was that company airplane got out of the way. All right, there's no one below him. It's clear from where he is. He was at 13,000. It's clear for him to go all the way down to 5. So Braniff is happy. They're deviating to the west. They're like on a 340 heading. They're going down to 5,000, 5,000 feet. And this is what the pilot wants. But the controllers don't like it. The controllers don't like it. You can tell from their voices they don't like it. But the pilot is in command. It's okay. Like, I don't care how much I fly. Turbulence always gets me on edge. I can't stand that roller coaster feeling. It is what it is. I feel you. Turbulence. I've been in some pretty rough turbulence. I've never been in severe turbulence. Severe turbulence can make the airplane fall out the sky. It can literally shake parts of the airplane off. Most people are like, I was in severe turbulence. Like, no, you weren't. Most people who've ever been in severe turbulence, they don't fly again. That's how bad it is. I've been in moderate. Most people have been in like moderate to light turbulence. Like severe turbulence will break the airplane apart. So just to give you an idea, as bad as you think it might be, you ain't seen nothing. And most people won't see it. Where air traffic and the pilots have gotten really good about staying away from the rough areas. A lot of airplanes out there, they know where the bad area is. They do their best to avoid it. So here we go.
Braniff 352, you indicate the area you're going into there now as being fairly clear, or you see openings through it?
352, it's not clear. We think we see an opening through it.
Braniff 352, Roger.
So this is the controller saying, hey, the controller's looking at his radars. He's looking at all his radar, weather information. He's talking to all the other controllers and all the other airplanes and what reports they've been getting. And he's telling his captain, like, man, this is his way of saying, are you sure you want to go this way? Is it clear over there? Why are you over there? That's what this pilot is trying to say. You can tell it's a dance. It's a delicate dance and what words they're using because everyone knows it's being recorded. So the controller is basically trying to put pressure on this pilot. Like, hey, man, you're the only one out there. Why are you over there? Is it clear? Because if it is clear, they're going to want to send some more airplanes over there. If it's working, like, dude, if it's working, if it's, no turbulence, it's clear, you ain't got no crazy weather, we want to send some more airplanes over there. And you see how the pilot's like, well, we think we see a hole, we think it's going to be clear. And then one of the other pilots on board, one of the crew members is going to say, hey, you hear that? Ask if there's reports of hail. So this crew is dealing with the worst part of this storm. It sounds like now you're starting to feel the hail, and we got these big chunks of ice hitting the airplane. So let's see what happens next.
352, do you have any reports of hail in this area?
No, you're the closest one that's ever come to it yet. I haven't been able to get anybody to, well, I haven't tried really to get anybody to go through it. They've all
And so there it is right there. You see, now the controller is getting a little more aggressive. The pilot's asking, hey, you got any reports of hail over here? No, bro, ain't nobody else went that way. Like, you the only one, right? Everyone else has gone to the east, and the east is working pretty good. So no, we don't have any reports for you. They've all deviated around to the east.
Around to the east.
And then the captain said, real quick, the captain is talking to the pilot working the radio. Don't talk to him too much. So the pilot's hearing what this guy is saying, and the pilot's like, don't talk to him too much. Why? Because the pilot understands what the controller is doing. You see there? The pilot like, look, he's trying to get us to admit we made a mistake deviating to the west. So he's like, don't talk to him. Don't talk to air traffic control. The controllers are trying to get us to admit we made a mistake. Now, this is where lives are lost or lives are saved. This is the point where lives are lost or lives are saved in air traffic control. Even to this day, mind you, this was back in the 60s, what we're listening to now, but even to this day, it gets to ego. You ain't gonna tell me what to do. Like, bro, that ain't just you. You got a plane full of people. The air traffic controller is thinking of the big picture. Don't talk to them no more. They're trying to get us to admit we made a mistake here. It's like, bro, this ain't good. Let's continue. So one of the crew members said, it looks worse to me over there. And he's probably talking about back to the west. Back to the east. It looks worse to me over there in the east is what one of the crew members was saying. And now they're starting to get into the storm. They're hitting the leading edge of the storm. Now they're getting into the sail. They're getting into the nasty stuff now. Right? So let's continue. That horn you heard was the landing gear horn. Remember, he was told to descend and maintain, I think 3,000 was the last altitude he was given. 3,000 feet is not a lot when you're dealing with a storm, right? A storm could push your airplane up or down 10,000 feet. And there's nothing you can do about it. So when you start to get into, single digit in altitudes, you ain't got a lot of room to play with. It's 3,000 feet between you and the ground. I've jumped from 2,600 feet before. 3,000 feet ain't that high. Right? It's not like it looks all patchy. It's not like you're jumping from, 20, 30,000 feet in the air. 3,000 feet's not that high. And that landing gear horn sounds, which means the aircraft knows it's getting into close proximity to the ground. So the horn is to remind you to drop the gear. So, listening to this tape, I'm wondering what altitude were they at this point? Let's continue. Now the crew is saying, make a 180, a 180 degree to turn. That's a 180. If you're going this way and you make a 180, that means you're going back the way you came. A 180 degree turn. So now the crew realized they screwed up bad. This is a problem. If you listen closely, you can hear the ice hitting the airplane. So there's hail out there. There's probably all sorts of wind shear and microbursts, which they didn't know about back then. They wasn't really up on wind shear like we are today. They really wasn't up on microbursts. up and down drafts. Science of technology has come a long way since the 60s, especially in aviation. These pilots are just dealing with it. They're holding on to the yoke. They're looking at their wind indicators, their speed, their ground speed, their air speed. That, you know, the storm will have you speed up and slow down. Storms are dangerous. This is why pilots avoid them. These guys went in. No one else has been there. They're going over here to the west. The controllers are trying to get them to go to the east. And now they get into the storm. It's nasty. There was no hole in it. There was no gap, right? They get in there like, uh-oh, we need to get out of here. Ask for a 180. So now they're going to ask the controllers to get out of there. Now, at this point, this crew could declare an emergency. The crew can declare an emergency. Just key up. This is Braniff Flight 352 declaring an emergency. We're turning about to a 180 heading. And the controllers will say, Roger. And that's it. The controllers won't say anything else because they understand, all right, dude's in it. And the controller will come back and say, altitude and heading, your discretion. So that's just, you can do anything you want. I'm going to get all these airplanes out of your way. You can do anything you want. The captain could have called an emergency right then. And the air traffic controller would have pulled everybody out of the way. And the air traffic controller would have told the supervisor, who's already watching. Trust and believe the supervisor is right over his shoulder like an umpire in a baseball game, over the catcher's shoulder. He's looking. And he's like listening. The supervisor can walk over, plug right in, and just push a button and can listen to what's going on. So the supervisor just starts shaking his head. If the pilot declared an emergency, the supervisor would have unplugged and started moving airplanes out of the way and getting this controller all the help he needed. They would have taken all the other airplanes away. This guy's probably working half a dozen, maybe a dozen airplanes as a center guy or an approach controller, you know, descending this guy down. They would have taken all those airplanes away. Now, controller would have been working only the Braniff flight. But the crew never declared an emergency because they didn't want to say they were wrong. They're simply saying ask for a 180. So let's continue.
Now, 352, I'd like to make a 180, please.
Braniff 352, 180 right or left, that's approved.
So right there, the pilot comes on. Hey, we'd like to make a 180, please. These subtleties mean something in air traffic control. He's coming like, please, man. Like this is, and what did the controller? Right away, the controller didn't even hesitate. Right or left, 180 is approved. The controller knows he's in trouble. He knows this flight is in trouble. He's anticipating this. The controller is already moving airplanes away, anticipating this problem. Like I said, probably already called the soup over. Hey, soup, we're going to have a problem with this Braniff flight. I think we should start moving some of these aircraft out the way. Dude's going to have some issues. And they're all looking at their equipment. Like they're in the worst part of this storm in Texas, where they have these horrific storms anyway to this day, right? So as soon as Braniff Flight said we want a 180, the controller was like, left or right 180 is approved. Whatever you need, bro. Whatever you need, do it. If Braniff Flight was asked for an altitude, any altitude's approved. Whatever you need, bro. Because they know how serious this situation is right now. We're beyond the point of no return by this point. We're beyond that. You know what I mean? And the first officer keys up 352. Let me know when you come back around. So now you got the crew talking. Sounds of landing gear and the fire warning horns. I don't know about this particular aircraft, but the landing gear horn doesn't sound until you're within, I want to say, less than 100 feet of the ground. I could be wrong. If there are any pilots out there watching this, you know, hit me up in the comments. Let me know when that horn goes off. I haven't been in the aircraft in a while, but normally, like last time I was in a Cessna, that landing horn didn't go off until we were just a few feet above the deck. We're flaring out, and the flare means we're getting the nose up, and you know, you're coming in like this, and then right before you hit the runway, you want to flare out and get the mains on, and then you get the nose down. Right on our flares when we would hear that horn. And I think on the big airplanes, somewhere on like a half-mile final, quarter-mile final, you might hear that horn to drop the landing gear. I haven't been up front in so long, I can't remember at what point. I can't remember at one point you get that horn. But the point is this: you're close to the ground. If that horn's going off, you're real close to the ground. And then the fire warning indicators, A lot of that has to do with the wind. You get these severe gusts that goes through those engines. Remember, this is a jet engine with a propeller on the front. If you get these gust of winds, it will trick the aircraft into thinking there's a fire. I've dealt with that with airplanes on the ground. Like, hey, engine shut off, and there was a nasty storm moving through. This was in Miami, and the pilot asked us if, hey, we're getting a fire indicator. We need to evacuate the aircraft tower. Can you see anything? We couldn't see nothing. It was zero visibility. We couldn't see nothing. So right then, when the pilot say, hey, everyone's going to evacuate the aircraft, all the passengers, it's literally at least 50 airplanes on the taxiway in front of and behind him. Everyone had their engines off. So right away, we just got the fire crews out there, and they went out to go help if they can. But the winds, there were microbursts, and the winds were so intense that the airplane thought it was on fire. And the pilot was like, we got it. We're just going to get everybody out of here. Same thing. It was a turboprop. None of the big jets. And I was asking the pilots around. I knew who was around them. So I'm reaching out to Delta. I'm reaching out to American. Hey, can you guys see anything? They're like, negative. Zero visibility. And I told the pilots around them, just, hey, everyone had the engine shut off. I'm like, just a heads up, guys, you might see people, personnel and crew running on the taxiways. And then, of course, we got all our emergency equipment out there to help them out. And it turns out the aircraft wasn't on fire. When it was all said and done, everybody was fine. But again, just another day in the control tower. So let's continue. Well, no, let me catch up with the chats real quick. Miss AK, hey lady, I wouldn't fly again. Gas up the whip. Hey man, I've been in some pretty bad turbulence, but I've never been in severe turbulence. Severe turbulence, like I said, will shake the airplane apart. And she's like, yeah, hard head makes for a soft behind. Facts. And dudes get into their macho stuff, and I don't want to be told, you ain't gonna tell me what to do, kind of thing. And I want to be right. But the minute they hit that storm, his whole demeanor changed. Yeah, I need some help. Hey, can we do a 180 controllers? Yeah, left or right's approved. Get out of there. You know what I mean? Brother Scam Likely is like, hey, bro, I thought air traffic controllers were earning easy money. This is real work with attention to detail. Bro, you have no idea. You have no idea. It's a reason I'm retired young. It's a reason you cannot work as an air traffic controller beyond age 56. And this is it. This is it. I've dealt with this kind of stuff. I mean, this is, bro, you talk about the stress levels, man. I've dealt with some pretty bad things. And to be standing there looking at it. The radar guys don't get to look out a window, but the tower guys are looking out these big old windows, and you see it. You see the airplanes smoking. You see the airplanes coming down. You see it. Bro, I ain't gonna lie to you, man. I love my career, but I'm glad I don't do it anymore. Let's continue. And again, like it had right here, it says sounds of landing gear and fire warning horns. So this is really, really bad. That noise you guys heard right there, that garble, crunching, whatever noise, I believe that was the airplane coming apart. That's what I believe it was. Braniff Flight 352 broke apart at an altitude of approximately 6,750 feet and then crashed in Dawson, Texas at 4:47 p.m. local time. 85 passengers and crew were deleted. There were no survivors. Just that fast. That's how it happens. Just that fast. Because the pilot wanted to deviate to the west. Is this a bad thing for the pilot? Was the pilot a knucklehead? No. He made a judgment call. He's up front. He's in command. He made a call. People do that when in their cars. You make a judgment call. Can I make it past? Can I get over these train tracks before the train gets here? You make a judgment call. That puddle doesn't look too deep. I think we should go ahead and drive. Just go drive through that puddle. That's a judgment call. And sometimes those people get smacked by the train, and sometimes those people think the puddle ain't that deep and they get swept away. Right? How many times you've been driving the freeway and the visibility goes from normal, clear, unrestricted visibility to less than a quarter of a mile visibility, and you're on the freeway. And if you're down here in Florida, these people don't know how to slow down. They can't see and they still doing 80 miles an hour. Someone had to make that decision. I'm going to still do 80 miles an hour on the freeway, even though I can only see a quarter of a mile in front of me. They make a decision. Sometimes it works out great. Sometimes it doesn't. That's air traffic control, man. You know, and I know a lot of people out here thinking right now, like, well, Saint, have you ever dealt with that sort of thing? Yes. Yes, I have. More than most. I was lucky that way. I would be up there just, I could think that probably the top 10 like events at Van Nuys, my last 8 years there, I would say my last 8 years at Van Nuys, probably like the top 5, top 10 events that happened there. It was like really crazy stuff or ended in loss of life or something like that. I probably worked out of the top 10. I was probably present for 7 of them. I was probably working 4 of them. And by working, I was actually plugged in talking to the pilot. It's nothing you can do. Keep the pilot calm, give him as much information as you can, give him whatever he needs, have the confidence in your voice so he's not worried. You know how when little kids don't get worried until they see that you're worried. Can't be worried. Got to be confident. Try to make it happen. Make the best call. And it just doesn't work out. Yeah, I've seen it a lot. You ain't got to take my word for it. Look the paperwork up. My name's all over it. And dealing with the attorneys when they come in the end. That's the worst part of all of it. It's so horrific. It happens. People get hurt. People leave us. And then you got to come and the attorneys come. Years later, the attorneys come. Then you got to go to court. You got to go to hearings. You got to go to depositions. And bro, I'm telling you, man, like I said, I don't miss air traffic control at all. I just wanted to tell this. I wanted to cover this today because a lot of people were asking me about it. And I saw this video and I'm like, you know what? This will be a good video. Braniff Flight 352 broke apart. They experienced severe turbulence. This is why the air traffic controllers were doing their best to get the pilot to go east instead of west. Back then, air traffic control had better radar on board. Even to this day, the air traffic control radar is a little bit better than the pilot's radar, although the pilot's radar is really good. It's really good. But the pilots will 9 times out of 10 defer to air traffic. Air traffic say, hey, there's a weather cell out there. You can expect to deviate 20 degrees left of course, east of course, right of course, west of course, however. And then, you'll give them a heading. They're sitting there on a runway, right? They're sitting on a runway. There's like a, like a 090 heading, like runway 9. They're on runway 9. There's weather out there right in their course. And, you tell them they're sitting on a runway. They're sitting there. All right, can we go right? Right looks clear. You can go right, but if you go right, we can't let you go right at this moment. We're gonna have to pull you off the runway. Like you can have a left turn on departure, expect a left turn, heading, you got to just, he's on a 90 heading, so you got to turn him left. So you can expect a left turn heading, whatever. You know what I mean? You can expect a left turn heading 340. You got to negotiate with the pilots. Well, maybe I can go. Can we go all the way over to 340? You know what I mean? Like, all right, we can get you 020. All right, we'll take that. We'll take that 020, and you can spec further left and higher after departure. All right, we'll take that. We'll take that 020 heading. Right, cheat code for air traffic control. When the numbers get smaller, that's left, and when the numbers get bigger, that's a right turn. Smaller numbers is a left turn. Bigger numbers is a right turn. So, those are the kind of things that you do. You sit there, you negotiate with the pilots, you give them what they need. If they can't do what you need them to do, you pull them off the runway, put somebody else on the runway, see if they'll do it. Next pilot, like, you know what, we'll get out a try. And then once they get through it, they'll call back and say, yeah, that worked real good. And then other pilots will say, yeah, American took it. It was American 737. They said it was light chop all the way up. It worked pretty good. The 020 heading worked really well. And then all the other guys are like, okay, I'll go next. I'm ready to go. We're ready to go. And you just hear them like, oh, we're ready to go. And then you just start putting them on there and get it going. And you do it until it doesn't work anymore. Someone goes like, yeah, that was rough. We don't want to do that again. Then we slow it down again. All right. We're trying to find another way through that. We lost our whole The pilots are like, cool, no problem. Why? Because they know about Braniff Flight 352 and they don't want to take any unnecessary risk. They're going to listen to air traffic control. Like, all right, we're going to listen to them. If everyone else is doing that, I want to do that too, because it seems to be working. So that's how it is. You know what I mean? That is how it is. When say Kayla, she's like, oh no. It's like, I didn't realize it was going to end like that. Yeah. Yeah. She's like, what was the craziest story? I can't talk about a lot of them. Still can't talk about a lot of them. A lot of them are still under litigation, but they're pretty bad. They're pretty bad. You know, even all these years later, I still can't talk about them because they can come get me and make me come to court and they'll bring this video. Hey, in this video, you said this, you know, so I can't talk about them, but they were bad enough to keep me up. You know, they were bad enough. You know, some of them were bad enough that I had to go sit down and talk to somebody. I'm like, man, I need to go talk to somebody, man. I don't know how to handle this. I don't know how to process this. I know how to process other stuff. I know the street stuff. I know how to handle that. The war stuff, I know how to handle that. But this, I didn't know how to process it. You know, I just didn't know. I had to get some help. And luckily our union has programs where we can pick who we want. The best, I had the best psychiatrist in LA. She was amazing. And she was good too, y'all. She knew what she was doing. But as part of this program, I had to pay a dime. Didn't have to pay a dime. Look at that. FAA better keep your mouth shut. Ain't nobody scared of you, FAA. Come see me in the parking lot, FAA. You crazy. Fresh and Fit fam, man. Y'all crazy out there, bro. Brother Dino, like, when did you stop using those wooden blocks in ATC, brother? Hilarious. The wooden blocks. If I know what you're referencing, back in the day, they had this thing they called boats, and they were kind of made out of wood, and they moved them around. But there are also these things called flight progress strips, where back in the day were made of wood, and they would slide the strips in there. They would kind of hold them. Now everything's like plastic and other like silicon based stuff. You know, it's just different thing. And a lot of it's being automated now, like touchscreen stuff. But I never used the real old stuff. I worked with the old controllers, and they told me the stories, but I never worked with them. The way they used to apply it, they used to have these big maps, and they would, before automation, it was crazy. The way that they moved those airplanes, and it was way more airplanes out there back then there are now. After World War II, everybody came home and bought themselves an airplane. They bought a Cessna, they bought a Bonanza, they bought a Mooney, they bought a Cherokee. They bought all these little bitty single engine lightweight airplanes. You know what I mean? All these little single weight lightweight aircraft, and just started flying. And I dealt with a lot of that. But yeah, that's air traffic control, guys. That's how it works. The pilot is in command. Air traffic could do nothing to make that pilot take an easterly heading. He wanted to go west. He wanted to go around the storm to the west. He wanted to descend, get down as soon as he could. He thought he saw a way through him and his crew. They thought they saw a way through the storm. Unfortunately, they were mistaken, and it cost them and every passenger on that plane was lost. It wasn't malicious. He wasn't trying to do it on purpose. It happened. It happened. And the air traffic controllers working them had to keep working until they got some relief in there. Because it would take hours to figure out what happened to the airplane. Hours. Right? Everyone knows about the Kobe Bryant incident. Yeah, Kobe Bryant flew through our airspace. And yeah, I was sitting in the tower. Yeah. Like I said, top 10 events at Van Nuys past like my last 8 years. I was involved in most of them. Either I was in charge or I was actually sitting there plugged in somewhere working. I was involved. I was right there. I worked a lot. I said I was good at what I did. Brother Nitus is in the building. Look at the FAA. I'm watching you building evidence on Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. I didn't work that one. I can promise you I had nothing to do with that one. I could promise you I had nothing to do with that one. But, you know, a lot of stuff that, you know, in that San Fernando Valley in Southern California, man, I had, I was right there. There's some stuff when I was working in Miami. I was involved in some stuff in Miami. Like I say, I'm a good controller, man. I was there. I ain't never scared. I plug in. I was ready to go. And I had a lot of experience and I knew what to do. But I can only do so much. If a pilot wants to do something, you know, the pilot is in command of that aircraft. So just remember that whenever you go flying, you see that pilot out there standing around, take a good look at him because he has your life in his hands. If you don't like the way that guy looks, if there's something about him, he's a suspect, go ahead and get off that plane, man. Get on another plane with a different pilot. You know what I mean? And look, in the FAA going too far, like Kobe wouldn't have made it if it wouldn't have been for me. We can only cover up so much. There's gonna be people mad at you for that joke, bro. I know you joking, but there's people take that serious. And even with that one, we didn't know who was on board that aircraft, right? And it was one of those things. We did everything we could to encourage that pilot not to do what he was trying to do, but we couldn't stop him. We couldn't. Like, it's on the pilot that, hey, this is, there are rules out there that the pilots can use. And if you know the rules, then you can go ahead and do it, man. I can't stop you, but I'd advise you do something different. Yeah, definitely Dark Hermit. Like I said, man, like, I'm a comedian, so it's like, I know it. I'm like, be careful with that, bro. Be careful with that dark humor. Somebody come look you up for that, man, because people love the mamba, man. I'm one of them. But that was a crazy day. And the investigations behind that, I'd never seen that before. I'd never seen an investigation that intense in all my time as an air traffic controller. And this was at the end of my career. I'd never seen it. Never seen anything like it. Like, wow, that was something. That was something. You know what I mean? That was sad. If only that pilot, it is what it is. I'm gonna leave that alone. I'm not gonna talk about that no more. I'm gonna leave that one alone. That was definitely a sad day for the world and especially for LA. That's a real sad day. But this is what air traffic control is about. And it's the pilot, not the controller. It's the pilot that's ultimately in command. So that's it right there, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I just wanted to do a quick little thing just to let you guys know, like, I'm the real deal when it comes to air traffic control. I might do this every now and then. I found a couple channels that talks about some mishaps and some things that goes on in aviation. I might, from time to time bring them up and just kind of give you guys the air traffic controllers take on, whatever it is. And a lot of these things, they have like radar plots and they got pictures and all this other kind of stuff. And they got maps of the airport and, you can listen to the controllers and pilots and I can break it all down for you. Like, oh, this is, and I can tell you like, oh, in my opinion, this was the pilot's fault. Or like, in my opinion, this was the air traffic controller's fault, or it's the system's fault. Sometimes things happen that is not the pilot's fault completely. It's not the controller's fault completely. It's the system, the way it was set up, like the way that they have this procedure in place. The procedure could be bad. And then that's on the government. That's on the FAA. So it's always, it's never 100% this one, 100% that one, 100% the other. It's like they'll give percentages here and here and here. And then they'll go and try to change the system. They'll try to change the program because they don't want these mistakes to happen again. And most of the time, the overwhelming majority of the time, no one gets hurt. Airplane might get dinged up a little bit, but everybody walks away. Flying, air travel is still the safest form of transportation. It is what it is. You know what I mean? Brother Dino was like, what could be a more stressful job? Maybe a trauma surgeon. That's pretty stressful. Cops got it. Look, law enforcement has a very, very stressful job. They got a very stressful job, especially when they get poor training. Like, bro, that's stressful. But air traffic, consistently top 3 most stressful careers you can have in America. In the world for that matter. Consistently top 3 most stressful jobs you can have. A lot of stress involved in air traffic control. I can personally attest to that. I've had a lot. My thing was when something went bad at work, if it was a close call or if someone got hurt or, an aircraft went down or whatever, I saw something pretty bad. My thing was I would never drink. I would go home. I would try to rest. I would exercise. I would get in a hot tub. I would call friends. I would get around my friends and use them to kind of insulate me because I know I'm going to be kind of numb. They would know what's going on. They would just kind of drag me around, but I wouldn't drink. Right. I wouldn't smoke. Like I don't smoke cigarettes anyway. And we weren't allowed to smoke anything else, but I wouldn't indulge in anything legal or illegal. I wouldn't do it. I stayed away from alcohol. I'm like, I'm not going to be that guy. I'm not going to be that guy that has a rough day at the office and come home and drink a whole bottle of Jack Daniels. I'm not going to be that guy. And there are controllers out there who use all sorts of means to cope. Me, I just dealt with it. We just grab the bull by the horns and, hold on for the ride. And I just have my people around me and they would protect me, so to speak. And I would go talk to whoever I need to talk to. That's why I do believe in talking to counselors, good ones. You can find a good counselor, a good psychologist, a good psychiatrist. Man, go talk to him, bro. The one that I used, the psychiatrist, I mean, she could prescribe meds. I didn't need any. But she would just tell me to read books. She would talk to me. She was an excellent listener. She would write a couple notes, right? And she would write her notes. She kept mental notes, and she would write them down after the session. But she would sit there, and she would bring up stuff. Well, you said this, at the other session, you said this. And she would have me read books. That was her thing. She's like, have you ever heard of this book? I'm like, no. And she's like, go get this book. And I would go get the book and read it. And sure enough, it would be stuff in there that was, relevant to what I was dealing with. I'm like, huh. And she'd come back like, oh, so what you think? And I'm like, all right, I saw what you mean about the book and, and the characters and this and that. And thank you. I see what you mean. Cause, and she was like, so which character are you in that particular book? And I'm like, I'm this person right here. It's like, you're right. That's who you are right now. And I mean, and it was like real cool. I was like, all right, man, I feel good. I'm able to work through it and able to come back ready, for the next thing. And, you take time off from work. I remember I had worked this real bad one and I took some time off, took a lot of time off from work. And when I finally came back, like the first day I came back and I was, plugged in working, they put me on like the least stress position. Something went wrong. As soon as I plugged in, something went wrong. I couldn't have been there more than 15 minutes. And all the controllers was like, eyes were this big. They're like, what's going on? And I'm sitting there doing the job. And it was almost identical to the situation in the same place, no less. And I'm sitting there like, God, I did my job. I didn't bail out. There was people like, you want to get out? I'm like, no, no. Man, this is the job. This is what it is. Either I'm going to do it or I'm not. And if I'm not going to do it, then I can leave right now. And this was at the beginning of my career too. Like either I'm going to do it or I am not. And I did it. I did it. But I couldn't believe it though. Everyone in the tower was like, we cannot believe this. Easy day. They put me in this easiest position, got me surrounded by the A team, like the best controllers up there. And bam, this happens. Like it happens on my watch. Like, oh man. Luckily it turned out fine. It was just a new pilot. And he kind of got overwhelmed and whatever. It turned out fine, but it was crazy. Brother Dino, do you remember that recent new plane? If the nose went too high, the engines would cut out and they kept it running. I'm not familiar with that. So normally it was like if the nose goes too high, the engines will cut out. That's called a stall. Like if you run an airplane and you put the nose up and you climb, the airplane can only go so high before it loses its energy. It'll burn off all its energy. And once it does, it's going to stall and it'll roll over and it'll go down. Stalls, planes do it all the time. Fighter pilots do it all the time. Jets do it. Propeller planes do it. That's the first thing they teach you how to do when you learn how to fly is to recover from a stall. So they purposely have you stall your airplanes and, it just kind of falls out the sky. Start the engine, get the engine going, and then start flying again. So, all airplanes stall. It's not a big thing. It's not a big thing at all. The only time if installing is a problem is if you're in a dogfight and the plane, whichever plane stalls and rolls over first, the other plane is going to kill it. So you have stories of jet pilots. They're like, man, I hope this thing has more thrust and it can out climb this thing because whichever one of y'all, rolls over first, the other guy's going to get you. Tat. That's just dog fighting one-on-one. I'm not a fighter pilot, so I just know the stories. But yeah, stalling that's every plane stalls. If you got enough altitude is not a problem at all. And even like the big jets, the biggest threat in the skies is volcanic ash. That's the biggest threat to pilots out there today. If you're flying through volcanic ash, it'll shut down your engines. And there's stories out there like the big airplanes, the jumbo jets, 4 engines, all of them will go out because they're going through, volcanic ash. And a lot of times you don't even know it. The volcano can erupt in Hawaii somewhere, and the ash could be on the other side of the world, up in the flight levels, up in up there where the planes are, and you won't even know it until the other planes report it. You flying through it, all 4 of your engines will go out. There's stories about that, how pilots will lose all 4 engines and they'll start going down. It's like they're over the ocean. There's no place to, just the ocean. And then they'll get the engine started up. And then there's one pilot. This happened. There's a few stories, but there's one story in particular I remember. Planes flying at night, and all the engines just cut out. One engine goes out, you get the warning. Then another engine goes out, you get the warning. They're trying to start them up, and then eventually all 4 engines go out, and the plane just starts descending. Of course, no engine, you can't fly. You're gonna start gliding. But they were like 30,000 feet plus, maybe 40,000 feet in the air, flight level 430, something like that. They're way up there, and the engines went out. So airplanes starting to go down. And they're just working to get the engine started. Eventually, they went down. They're probably down around 20,000 feet now. They get the engines going again. All 4 engines are going. Level the airplane down. All right, cool. They've already declared an emergency and everything. And air traffic control is trying to figure out how they're going to pull these people out of the ocean because they're over the ocean, over the Pacific somewhere. And so they start climbing back up. All right, we're doing good. Let's climb back up. So again, they get to a certain point. Boom, all 4 engines go out again. All thing happens again. The airplane noses over, goes down. They're like, what is going on? And, get down again about 20,000 feet, get all engines going again. They're like, you know what? We're just going to stay at this altitude. Air traffic control is like, bet. And then what it was later, they determined that it was a cloud of ash at that altitude at flight level 430, where 420, whatever it was, at 43,000 feet. There was a layer of volcanic ash, and it got into their engines and it made the engines shut down. So, and I think I want to say it was a 747. I want to say it was a Boeing product. Solid airplane. They were able to get the engine started again twice, right? Their training kicked in, and the most experienced pilots fly these big airplanes. So, it all worked out well. And then it was nighttime, so they couldn't see it. They couldn't see the volcanic ash, and they didn't have any reports of the volcano erupting. So eventually they pieced it all together. And they were like, oh, okay. So I don't know if they have technology on board the aircraft now that detects that. I don't know if they do or not. But I know that air traffic works with volcanologists and scientists all over the world. If a volcano goes off, like in Mexico here recently, about 6-7 months ago, I think it was, they had this volcano was like erupting, going crazy. And that was it. They were grounding flights. That's it. What? Volcano? That's it. Airplanes weren't going down there. They weren't even risking it. Nope. American air carriers in America were grounding their fleets. Like, ain't nobody going to Mexico. Ain't nobody even going to that part of the country. We don't want to take no chances of going through that volcanic ash until we can track it, send out tech to try to track it. I don't know how they track it, but it is what it is. It is what it is. It was like, can the pilot control a guy in the airplane? Yeah, absolutely. When the engines, Sully did it. That's what happened in the Miracle on the Hudson. They take off. They fly through a flock of birds, which is that's probably the second most dangerous thing to airplanes or flocks of birds. They fly through a flock of birds. Both engines go out. That was an Airbus, if I'm not mistaken. Both engines go out, and Sully, Captain Sullenberger, I think his name is, he knew he couldn't land at the airport they just took off from. I don't know if it was LaGuardia or JFK, and he knew he couldn't make Teterboro. So he's looking down at the Hudson River, and he's like, we're going to land there. And he glided that air carrier down to the Hudson and put it on the water, kept the landing gear up, and he was like an avid glider pilot, so he has so much experience in that world. Anyway, he just glided that airplane right onto that river and put it down, and everyone walked off the aircraft safely. That's when people jumped in their boats and went out to go get the people off the airplane before it sank. And he's a hero, outstanding pilot, did a great job. They Tom Hanks played him in the movie. Right. So, and that's type in Miracle on the Hudson. You can see it. Yeah. Pilots. Airplanes are designed to glide. The engines give them power so they can go great distances, but the airplane is designed to glide, except for fighter jets. They don't glide too good. They're designed for other stuff. And Brother Dino saying the investigation into the Lion Air flight suggests the system malfunction and forced the plane nose down more than 20 times before it crashed into the sea. Yes, that was, yes. So in that case right there, if I'm not mistaken, we're talking about there was an upgrade, a system upgrade to the Boeing. I think it was the 737. I forget which model. It might have been the 800 model. I forget which model. But they made an adjustment to the airplane. They didn't brief it properly. They made this patch or whatever to the aircraft. And remember, I was saying earlier in this stream that the computers fly the airplanes today more than they did back in the day. So that still happens. The computer still flies the airplane a lot. Like it helps with the flying. Boeing rolls out this thing, right? And they didn't include the training with this adjustment they made to their aircraft. So they made a change to the autopilot. They didn't brief the change. They put the information out, but they didn't have like a course or something with it. They just put the information out. So when stuff like that happens, this is where first world versus non-first world comes into play. Right? So you got American pilots and Western pilots, first world pilots. They live this aviation life. Right? They just live it. They live and breathe aviation. So if there's a change to any system on an aircraft that they fly or they're familiar with, they're going to get into all the technical details and they're going to get themselves up to speed on the change, which is what happened with the westernized nations. This change came out to the 737. It was a change to the autopilot system or something like that. So all of the westernized nations, first world countries, second world, those guys, those aviators were just digging into it. And the companies were making sure, and like the pilot associations and like the senior pilots were making sure all the pilots who flew that airplane were up to speed and they knew what time it was. Because the same thing happened to some American crews, American being, American citizens. The same thing happened. That happened to Lion Air. It happened with these crews, but they knew what to do. Oh man, this is the change to the, you might have a guy who's like, what's going on, man? This is crazy. What's going on? I'm having trouble with the aircraft. And then the other pilot like, oh man, you didn't read the briefing, did you? And he'll make the input corrections and bam, everything's good. Yeah, man, there was a change to the autopilot system. You got to do this sequence now. We used to do it like that. We used to go 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Now we do 3, 2, 1, 4, 5, 6. Oh, okay, my bad. I didn't know that. Westernized pilots, first world pilots, no problem. The rest of the world, they haven't been flying as long. The culture isn't the aviation culture. They're like, you got to brief them. You got to give them the information. You got to make sure they know, make sure they get the proper training. They didn't do that. And that's what led to that issue, because now you got two pilots up front and neither one of them saw the brief or knew what to do. All they do is have their planning training, the training they've been living on, and they just don't know what to do. And then boom. And it happened more than once, if we're talking about the same thing. So that's where first world, second world, third world comes in. That's where the whole culture of aviation, it's like America, look at cars, man. Like America is a car nation, so we know everything about cars. But if you pluck somebody out from some place where they don't even drive cars, they have like maybe horses and horse-drawn carriages, bring them into America, give them a car. Like, yeah, I can teach you how to drive a car, but you won't know all the ins and outs or whatever. If I got a manual stick, if I teach you how to drive a car, then I put you into a manual, you're like, how do I do this? No one taught me how to do this. I know how to drive a manual. I can drive a 5-speed. I know how to pop the clutch. If I'm having trouble getting the car started, I can just roll me down the hill, pop the clutch, car's running, we good to go. I know how to do that. A lot of Americans know how to do that because we're a driving nation, but you got people from rural places all over the world. They have no idea what that is. So that's the distinction right there. You know what I mean? That's the distinction right there. So, Brother Nino, like, do you remember that brilliant Denzel movie where he turned the plane upside down? Yeah. He was he was a functioning addict. Yeah, I remember that. I forget the name of it though. But yeah, every movie Denzel has done has been a great movie. I can think of, except for maybe two. But every movie he's done, like Denzel is just a beast. But I remember Flight. I think it was called Flight. I think it was called Flight. Yeah, it was a good movie. Real good movie. Denzel played that like Denzel does. That was a brilliant movie. I mean, it was just so funny. He's up. It's first thing in the morning. He's giving that, welcome, welcome on board speech, and he's mixing up his coffee with, whiskey, and just mixing it up. He was a womanizer. You know what I mean? He was all that, but he was like the best pilot ever. And they put him in an airplane that was messed up, and he was able to save most of the passengers and most of the crew. He didn't save everybody. And it was, like I said, then the investigations come in. Man, that was a good movie. That was a really good movie. And then Brother Dino saying that was loosely inspired by the plane crash of Alaska Airlines 261. The film starred Denzel Washington as William Whitaker Sr., an alcoholic airline. He was in the movie. He was alcoholic and a drug addict. I think it was called Flight. Man, it was a really good movie. So yeah, man, I'm glad you guys enjoyed that, man. We'll talk some more air traffic control stuff. I'll come across another one. Maybe I'll come across another one next month or something, and we'll have another talk about air traffic control. We can listen to the controllers talk to the pilot, and we could talk about procedures and what possibly went wrong and how it could have been done better, and who I think is at fault. And then we can also read the NTSB reports, because all that's out there as well. But yeah, I'm glad you guys was rocking out with me. Hope you enjoyed it. Y'all know what it is. I'll be back tomorrow. I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna talk about tomorrow. But I know I need to do some downrange stuff. So it might be a downrange episode tomorrow. Maybe we'll talk about Ron DeSantis and his upcoming the Republicans in this upcoming debate. Maybe we'll talk about that. There's a lot going on out there, y'all. So this was fun. I hope you enjoyed it, man. I will definitely see y'all tomorrow. Thanks for rocking out with me. I appreciate each and every one of y'all, man. My day ones. Thank you so much. I appreciate all my Ninja watchers out there. Keep watching. And if you're out there Ninja watching, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Go ahead and subscribe. It's all good. It ain't going to hurt nobody. That's all free, man. I'm DL Saint. This is the DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast, man. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Wait a minute. Before I go, Brother Dino, you ever watched The Most Dangerous Places to Land? Yeah, I've watched that. I've landed at some of those places. But the one place there was one place where you landed. You landed right into a wall. That was kind of crazy. I've never been there. But yeah, I've seen that. I've landed at a couple of those kind of dangerous places on planet Earth. Just a couple. But appreciate that, man. Brother Jackson at W Stream. Appreciate that. Y'all know what it is. I'm DL Saint. This is DL Saint I Really Want to Know podcast, man. I'm going to holler at y'all later. Peace.
Darn, that's the end.